Hi guys, today I'm going to be talking about how to wean a toddler from breastfeeding. I have 3 children and I weaned them all when they were toddlers or slightly older. My first was 3 years and 3/4. My second was just over 2 years old and my third was around 16 months old when I weaned him. So I have quite a bit of experience with weaning toddlers and older children from breastfeeding, and I know that it can be quite difficult to know where to start because toddlers, they know their routine inside and out, they know what their milk is and they know that they want it, and they can be quite stubborn. So it can often be really frustrating when you know that you've had enough or your limits have been pushed and you're feeling touched out and you're not sure where to start in getting them to cut down to give you a little bit of space, or whether you want to start weaning completely. Before we get into the tips, I just want to do a quick introduction for anyone who is new to my channel watching this video. Hello, I'm Chloe. As I said before, I've got 3 young children. We live in London in the UK. I talk a lot on my channel about parenting tips, especially things to do with breastfeeding toddlers who don't sleep very well at night. I like to do fashion videos, home hauls, and also baby and toddler fashion videos, and we also document our day-to-day lives and our travels together as a family. So if you like the sound of any of that, please do hit that subscribe button. Okay, so on to the tips. The first thing that I would like you to try and establish is, do you want to give up breastfeeding entirely, or have you stumbled across this video? Have you been searching for tips on how to wean your toddler from breastfeeding because you are feeling touched out, you're feeling frustrated, you are knackered, you're not sleeping, your toddler wants to feed all the time, and actually maybe what you just need is a little bit of space from breastfeeding, but not to finish altogether. You don't have to decide anything right now. You don't have to abruptly quit breastfeeding altogether if you're just not sure. Believe me, I have been there many times with each of my 3 children where it's all just got a bit on top of me and I've just wanted a little bit of breathing space, and then once I get that, I suddenly feel okay with the idea of breastfeeding again, and I do want to continue just with our new established boundaries that make everyone that little bit happier. Whatever it is that you are looking to achieve, whether that is stopping breastfeeding entirely or just cutting down a little bit till you get to a stage where you're both happy, the tips that I'm going to go through now are going to help with both of these situations. Okay, so let's get started. The thing with breastfeeding is babies feed when they're hungry. It's all very simple. Whereas at some point, usually when your baby is now a toddler and a little bit more self-aware, they suddenly realise that they can ask for milk whenever they want to. And of course, they will ask a lot. This can be really quite tough and overwhelming for us mums, and at that point it can be a good time to just establish a couple of ground rules and sort of boundaries with your toddler. There are a couple of tactics that I use to establish boundaries with each of my children when they were toddlers, and the first of those is to establish certain zones which it's okay to breastfeed in and others that it's not okay to breastfeed in. So before this stage that I just mentioned where my toddlers suddenly ramped up and wanted to feed all the time, we had just been breastfeeding wherever around the house. Any room was okay, there were no no-go zones, I just wasn't thinking about it. But as soon as it got to that stage and it just got a bit too much for me, I established certain zones where we would go and have a breastfeed, like a certain sofa but not the other sofa, or in their bedroom but not downstairs. And it took a little while, but eventually they started to realise that they couldn't just ask me for milk anytime I sat down. They knew that there were certain times of day and certain places that when we went to, they would get their milk, and that just helped all round with stopping them from asking every 5 minutes if they could have milk. If you're attempting to cut out a specific feed, a specific time of day, then distraction is a really useful tool to use. So say if I was trying to cut out the mid-morning feed, I would usually make sure that we went out and we were busy doing something during that time, so there was less chance for them to think about it. Or if that didn't work, I would distract them with food. That 9 times out of 10 would work, especially if it was something appealing that they wanted. And I am not ashamed at all to use that tool. I think it's a very useful tool, and it doesn't mean that they're going to be snack monsters forever or you're teaching them bad food habits. It's just something to use in the interim, and then you can kind of cut back on that once you cut out that feed. One thing that I think is really important to remember during this phase where you're trying to cut down or stop breastfeeding altogether is not to push your child away. I know that I struggled with this personally because the milk is like a part of my actual body. I felt like being in the room was like a constant reminder for my child. So if their dad was around, I would tend to think out of sight, out of mind. Maybe I should step away, leave the room, and my toddler won't think about it. That sort of thinking never really worked. If they're thinking about it, they're thinking about it whether you're kind of present or not. And generally, I did actually probably make it worse because they noticed that I was slightly kind of withholding and pushing them away, and they noticed my absence. So I actually think the best tactic when you're cutting back on breastfeeding is just to be really present with your child. Give them lots of cuddles. Don't deny the physical closeness, because it's that they want. That's why toddlers love breastfeeding so much. It's to be close to us. So if you can try and replicate that closeness without actually giving them your milk, then you're going to be onto a winner, because I think that your toddler would be so happy just to have another form of closeness with you. My last tip is one for those who do definitely want to start weaning altogether. With my first two, I started with night weaning first, thinking that once we cracked that, the daytime would be easier. And then with my third baby, I did it the other way around, and it was a complete revelation. So we started daytime weaning first and just left the nights, didn't worry about those at all. I used all the techniques that I've already mentioned in this video, the setting up rules and boundaries, distraction, and we managed to daytime wean over the course of about a month. Not only did that give me the space that I had been craving, that meant that actually we carried on nighttime breastfeeding for longer than I expected to, because I felt less touched out by not having the daytime feeds. Not only did that happen, which was great, but it also meant that when it came time to night wean, it was actually a lot easier than I expected. And that was because my toddler had kind of forgotten about breastfeeding. Although he was still feeding at night, he didn't really remember this because he was always half asleep. And in the daytime, he was having no feeds now. So in his head, he didn't really have a concrete kind of association with breastfeeding. So because of that fact, it actually was a lot more of a smooth transition when it came to weaning him entirely and cutting out those night feeds as well. If you are interested in hearing more about how I night weaned him, I have done a video on that. It's a step-by-step process of how we slowly night weaned over the course of a month or so, and I'll link that in the description box. I hope you found this video helpful. I know for me, with my first and also my second, I didn't know what on earth I was going to do. I just knew that I wanted to try and start weaning them, but I had no idea how to go about it, and it all just seemed like this huge mountain that we had to try and climb together, and I just honestly didn't think that they'd do it. They were such stubborn toddlers. So I hope that watching my tips has kind of given you an idea of how it can be done, and how it can be done gently without any distress for you or for them. Obviously, weaning all of my children as toddlers, I have clocked up quite a few breastfeeding years, and now I'm not breastfeeding at all, and I thought I would really miss it, and I was worried I'd be like really gutted actually when Otto finally weaned. But you know what? It's fine. He still comes for his cuddles. We still have a really close bond, and I am just happy and grateful for the time that I did have breastfeeding with them, and also the time that I have with them now. I've been very pragmatic about it. As I said at the start of the video, if you are watching this video because you've had a stressful couple of weeks or months or days, and you feel like it's now or never, I need to take action and change something, just try not to worry about it too much. You don't have to make any drastic decisions, any huge changes. It might just be that you need to implement 1 or 2 of these ideas that I've suggested, and that will give you the space that you need to be a little bit less stressed about the situation. Having been there many times myself, I do really understand that feeling of my child is out of control with their wanting to breastfeed, and the only way I can change this is just to cut them off abruptly, outright, and just kind of go cold turkey entirely. And I just want to say that that doesn't always have to be the case. That can be the case if you want it to be, but if you're not exactly sure what you want, just try one of these things, take it slowly, and see how you feel a little bit further down the track. I wish you the best of luck for your weaning journey or your quest to establish better breastfeeding boundaries. If you like this video, do give it a thumbs up and please subscribe. That would really make my day. Bye.